Hey folks, walk with me. A few months ago, I guess at this point, I put out a tweet and I will post it here in the video, but going off memory, I said something to the extent of my suspicion is that if Trump loses the election in November, that he will do everything that he can, or that he is working on a plan already to figure out a way to run it up to the Supreme Court, since they have been generally so appeasing to him that he will do that in an effort to just say, how about this one too, guys? And given his recent rally at Madison Square Garden and something he said there might be some more information as to how exactly he plans to go about that. And I stand by that prediction. I think that is the plan. Now, here's a way that it might take place based on something he said at MSG. At MSG, there was this really weird moment that if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris had done it, Elon and David Sachs and Peter Thiel and whomever else would be all up in arms talking about the collusion and conspiracy to do something shady around the election. But because Trump said it, that's not the case. What he said was in reference to Mike Johnson, the current Speaker of the House, that they have a secret and that they can't talk about that secret until after the election, but that it has something big to do with the House of Representatives. So how does that tie in? Well, here's one way that he could be planning to try to run this decision away from the voters and up to the Supreme Court to make the decision. The 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment, and I'm going to go off memory here, so pull it up and look at it if you need to. And I'll do my best not to misspeak. 12th Amendment is basically revolving around that thing that Mike Pence did that Trump was very unhappy about, where he counted the votes, did his job, and took the votes from the electors, opened them, unsealed them, and counted them in front of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Now, remember, the vice president is the president of the Senate. And so in the amendment, when they allude to the president of the Senate, they're talking about the vice president. So in this case, it would be VP Harris. So the amendment states that the electors from each state put in the votes for that state, send it to the Capitol in a sealed envelope, and that then there's this ceremonial thing whereby the Senate convenes and the House of Representatives convene, and in front of those bodies, the vice president, the president of the Senate, unseals them and counts them aloud, thus counting and then certifying the vote. If Republicans remain in charge of the House of Representatives, so if after November 5th, they are in the majority in the House, presuming Mike Johnson then remains Speaker of the House, the suspicion is that he will refuse to convene. He will refuse to meet, and he won't call the House to that ceremonial event on January 6th. He will go ahead and say, there's too much questionable information out there. We can't go forward with certifying what the electors have sent in. There's too many questions out there. Polymarket had Trump winning 70-30 or 60-40 or whatever it's going to be. And there's too many questions. We can't even convene the House of Representatives. And so then that'll leave Harris in a position where she would have to essentially say, okay, well, we're doing it with the Senate then. And she would essentially be unsealing, counting, and attempting to certify her own presidential win. I then suspect that Mike Johnson or whomever, RNC, whatever, files lawsuit saying that this is all unlawful, this can't be done this way, they are violating federal law, constitutional law, whatever, and try to get that lawsuit then run up to the Supreme Court, which something of such tremendous importance, I have no doubt that it would get run up to the Supreme Court. And then again, so now you have it in the hands of the Supreme Court, what I said months ago. And then if the Supreme Court says, okay, yeah, we can't go with what the President of the Senate unsealed and counted, we have to send it to, and this is again in the 12th Amendment, a contingency vote. I think that's what it's called. And what this means is it goes to the House of Representatives where each state gets one vote. So in this case, you just have 50 votes being cast for president. And that comes about by the representatives from each state, if I'm understanding this correctly, essentially voting themselves within their state, and then whatever that majority is, they cast that vote as one of the 50. And all that's needed here is a simple majority of the states. So 26th vote wins. Hopefully I'm getting all this math correct. And of course we know that, you know, the way that the population is strewn about the country and so on and so forth, there are most likely more red states than blue states. And so if the states are each getting a vote, no matter how many people they have, what the population is, you know, Wyoming getting the same vote as California, you know, likely that scenario would go to Trump. And it would then have taken place in this method, or this manner, and thereby you get the run up to the Supreme Court, you get it kicked back down to the House, and the House casts the votes. Game over. A few ways in which this could be thwarted. Because the House gets sworn in on January 3rd, I believe, they could be in a position where the Dems took over. And if that were the case, Johnson would, he may still try to do something, but theoretically he wouldn't have the majority to then be Speaker of the House and then be able to refuse to convene the House of Representatives at this January 6th session. And so that would be one way, just that Republicans no longer retain majority in the House. Another possibility, I don't know how likely this is, I feel like this has to be, you know, in the face of, like in the public eye and in the face of Mike Pence, Chris Christie, Mitt Romney, you know, like any Republicans, especially political Republicans, like Republican politicians, they might not be as popular as Trump. That's not the point. The point is they probably have a further future in front of them than Trump. And if they could get in front of this, start speaking loudly about this, put a lot of pressure and influence on Mike Johnson, maybe other sort of Republicans in the House that are likely to be reelected that wouldn't just be super keen to go along with this, you know, maybe they could inflict enough pressure on those folks to try to get them to not go along with this. In other words, if VP Harris won a free and fair election and they know it, that they don't, just because they're from a red state, vote red in their House contingency election. But yeah, it could get real precarious really quickly. It won't feel quickly, but if there's a plan in place, it could be unfolded, pretty rapidly in the vast scheme of things. And so this seems like the most likely scenario to me at the moment. But we'll see what happens. I certainly hope that Pence and Christie and Mitt Romney and, I'm leaving out probably much better examples, but, those folks who don't just bow down and kiss the ring of Donald Trump incessantly would be willing to get out in front of this and start to put some pressure on folks, that may do something. So it would at least be better than doing nothing. And also I did have a question where, I feel like Trump with his mindset, I almost feel like, it was such a stupid thing to say if there was this plan. And granted, he could have just said a stupid thing. But I wonder if he's been trying to get Johnson to do this and Johnson has been reluctant, if he hasn't just flat out said no. I wonder if he's been reluctant enough that Trump essentially put him on blast and just tried to make it a reality by stating publicly that it was a reality in a way whereby it would cause enough speculation, and obviously Mike Johnson would know exactly what he's talking about, but it would cause enough stir and speculation that it would put Johnson in a position where maybe he just would be more compelled, or in Trump's mind, he'd be more compelled to give in to the demands because it's already out there. I don't know, but I almost can't believe that there's not more attention. All the attention is drawn toward Tony Hinchcliffe in Puerto Rico, and I'm not saying that it's not deservedly so, but I think the real danger here is that illusion to a secret. It's sort of unbelievable to me. But here we are. And I think once the nomination was obvious, we knew that we were going to be here in some way, shape, or form. Hence the tweet that I put out. So please amplify this if you can. I think it needs to be known that, whether I have the plan correct or not, that there is some secret still, supposedly, unless he's just totally making something up, which I guess is possible. But I think if nothing else, what the hell is he talking about? The secret that you can't tell until after the election. Again, if that were Harris saying that, it would be nonstop with these tech bros and whomever else just shouting about how it's, they're clearly talking about a plan to steal, plan to subvert the will of the people, which they only care about if they think that it puts a blue tie in the seat instead of a red tie. If it's a red tie in the seat, they don't care. I guarantee you that. All right, folks, so if you walked with me, we got about 14 minutes in by the time all is said and done here. Stay safe, stay well over the next week. I wish we weren't here, but we are. And I certainly appreciate you watching this far, no matter whether you walked or not. And as always, I will see you in the next video.